Bernie, count me down till it
You're
hits
live
7
now?
o'clock. Good evening. My name is Marvin Rotran. I'm the National Director for the League for Human Rights of B'nai Brith Canada, and I welcome our awardees and our participants this evening for what is a very special and poignant moment. B'nai Brith has created a new certificate, a new award called the Emissaries Award. It recognizes people who have supported our organization and assured our success. And it recognizes also people who have made contributions to the Jewish community. Our 8 awardees this evening can be found from right across Canada, from New Brunswick all the way to British Columbia. They represent people who are not just Jewish, but people of good faith, allies of the Jewish community, people who have stood up to say no to anti-Semitism, people who have worked with Jewish community groups, people who say we must work together to root out hate and intolerance in this country, and that an attack against Jewish people, like an attack against any other racial or religious minority, requires us to say no and stand in solidarity. We hope over the coming years to build on the success of this evening. We will, on a regular basis, be naming other emissaries, and our Hall of Fame of emissaries hopefully will help guide us in the future by giving us counsel, by giving us information, and by being there when we need to reach out to people of different communities so that together we can be stronger. This evening, our technical team include Bernie Helrich and Lucas Fuina, who will be handling the YouTube and the Zoom broadcasts of the evening. Joining us as well is Dr. Ruth Ashrafi, our regional director in Manitoba, and other members of our team. Pierre-Luc Ranger in Montreal is with us this evening, and there may be other members of B'nai Brith's central team that join us during the evening. Mr. Michael Mostyn, our chief executive officer, gives his regrets. He is not well this evening, could not make the call. As national director, I know most of you personally. I have worked with all of you in some capacity over the last number of years. And I thank you for having been a tower of power behind our events, whether those events have been handled on Zoom or been live, events that promoted the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism, events that talked about unity and cooperation between the Black and the Jewish community, events that talked about the historic friendship of Filipinos and Jews, events that built solidarity between the Chinese community and the Jewish community in Canada. You were a good reason all those events were successful, and I thank you. So we're going to go to our very, very first awardee, someone who's very well known to B'nai Brith in the Toronto area, and that is Eddie Rice. Eddie is a polio survivor, but he has not let a handicap keep him down. Eddie has been active and successful for his entire working life. Eddie is by profession a prosthesist. He worked at Sunnybrook Hospital in Toronto, where that was the bulk of his professional career. He's been actively involved in B'nai Brith since 1973. That's more than 50 years. And he's always been ready to step up to the plate. He was the person who founded the Canadians with Disability Subcommittee of B'nai Brith in 1998. He became the chair, and he's been the longtime chair of that body that advises B'nai Brith Canada. Eddie has been instrumental in getting Canada's first provincial accessibility legislation adopted, and that was adopted by the legislature in Ontario. Yeah. I would ask those who are on the call, keep yourself muted until you're called. Thanks. Eddie was instrumental in getting Canada's first provincial accessibility legislation adopted in Ontario. I believe that was in 2005. Eddie can correct me if that's incorrect. And he deals with government at all levels. Media promotes products that increase the quality and safety of life, not just disabled
Still
Canadians.
No louder.
He also has been instrumental in promoting the fuel service app. For those who do not know, it's an app that was done with Shell Oil that allows disabled Canadians to get full service at gas pumps at over 1,300 locations across Canada. So I'd like to give the award to Eddie Rice from Toronto. Would we please show the certificate on screen so everyone can see it? It reads, to Eddie Rice, the chair of the Disability Committee, for over 50 years of active participation in aiding our organization to better serve the Jewish community. And B'nai Brith commends him for his work promoting accessibility to those of reduced mobility. Congratulations, Eddie. The floor is yours. Would Eddie please take the microphone?
Well, thank you, Marvin. And I wish to take this opportunity to thank B'nai Brith for being a large part of my life over the last 50 years. I've made lifelong friendships that have inspired me and educated me as to what community service can be and what people can accomplish if they put their minds to it. I'd like to thank originally Tony Silberman, who approached me in 1998 with the idea of creating a Canadians with Disabilities Committee for B'nai Brith. And with her inspiration and guidance, I've taken over this committee for over the last 25 years, made some very nice accomplishments. As you mentioned, there are certain products. The B'nai Brith senior buildings, we have installed what's called the evac chair. It's in case of an evacuation of a building, especially residents with seniors, that they can get downstairs in a wheelchair that, besides having wheels, also has skis on it, which allows them to glide down the stairs and evacuate the building with everybody else. B'nai Brith is putting them in all their senior buildings, which is I'm very proud of. I also would like to acknowledge that the work that we've done has been instrumental in the new JCCs, the one on Bathurst and the one on Richmond Hill. With the B'nai Brith is with the executives there of the JCCs have allowed me to go above and beyond the building code to build superior accessibility features, which will allow more people with more disabilities to be able to use the facilities. As a matter of fact, the Leibovici Center in Richmond Hill won the Accessibility Design Award from the town of Vaughan for the superior designs that we included in the building. And I have to admit that working with the people there, with their attitudes of having to go above and beyond to make sure that they build the state of the art and the best that they can, it's certainly a feather in their cap as well as ours. And finally, I would like to thank Michael Mostyn for the guidance and inspiration that he has given me to continue with the work that I have done. And also the lifelong, like I mentioned, friendships that I continue to enjoy with members of B'nai Brith and also the general community of people that I've met and worked with on different committees. Thank you very much.
Eddie, I have a question for you. First of all, I want to say how well merited this recognition is, and thank you for your years of service. I mean, you're modest, your accomplishments that you just enumerated a few of, each one of those merits on its own being called out for an excellent achievement. Collectively, they represent an excellent body of work that's really benefited a lot of people. So as well, you've always been there when B'nai Brith has needed you. You've worked unremunerated for 25 years as chair of this committee. But perhaps you can tell us a little bit, how did you convince the legislature of Ontario to move forward on the Disabilities Act? Was that difficult? Who did you talk to? The premier? How did you get it done? Because Canada is way behind the United States even today in terms of legislation, in terms of building codes, et cetera, that deal with the handicapped. In the United States, they have something called the Americans with Disability Act, which puts obligations on municipalities and states to design in a way that's inclusive of everyone, regardless of the cost. But in Canada, there are a lot of exceptions to that. So when Ontario did this, it was the first tiny step forward. Can you tell us a little bit about the challenges you faced in getting that done?
Yes, I'd also like to introduce my wife, Harriet, who's been my inspiration.
Hi, Harriet.
Without her, you wouldn't have gotten anything. It goes back to the conservative government when Mike Harris was in power. For 10 years, I, representing B'nai Brith and other disability organizations, petitioned the government to bring in a ADA US-style accessibility legislation and was met with no results. Only until McGuinty came in with the Liberal government did they promise and deliver legislation. However, when the Liberals were voted out and the Conservatives are now back in with Mr. Ford, he has rescinded the enforcement factor of instituting the regulations that we so desperately need. So it is a matter of just perseverance and publicity to bring to the forefront and educate the public that the unfortunately conservative government does really not put people with disabilities in the forefront to have full access to our society.
Thank you for sharing that. I would ask Eddie if you, in the next day, send me an email about what you think the premier, the current premier, has to hear about the gestures of his government. What is it exactly that they've done that is wrong? I'll be happy to put that to paper, and on behalf of the League for Human Rights, alert the premier. I happen to have a very good relationship with his office, and maybe we can nudge him to take a second look. It would certainly be worthwhile. Thank you very much, and well-merited award. We'll now go to our second awardee. Before I do, I'd like to introduce another B'nai Brith staff member who has joined us, and that is Jonah Freed, a young man who is going places, who is in our communications team. He's attached to the Montreal office, and he is wise beyond his years. I won't tell you how young he is, but he's particularly young, and yet he comes up with excellent ideas at all our planning and strategy meetings. So welcome, Jonah. I'm going to go to our second awardee, and that's Pastor Fidel in Winnipeg. Before I do, I'm going to ask Dr. Ruth Shrafi, our Manitoba Regional Manager, to introduce Pastor Fidel and explain why he was chosen by B'nai Brith for an award this evening. Dr. Shrafi.
Thank you, Martin. So it is my great pleasure to introduce my good friend, Pastor Rudy Fidel, usually known as Pastor Rudy. Not only is he my friend, but more importantly, Pastor Rudy and his wife Gina are true friends and staunch supporters of the Jewish people and Israel. Pastor Rudy has a special place in his heart for Holocaust survivors. Here in Canada, or during the winter months in Florida, he keeps in active contact with many. When Pastor Rudy participates in B'nai Brith's special Yom HaShoah program, Unto Every Person There Is a Name, he will always wear the cap of Felix Opatowski, a Holocaust survivor. And 2 years ago, when he organized a concert tour through Canada with a Singaporean pianist whom he met in Israel when she was 4 years old, it's a long story and we'll skip it for now. Pastor Rudy brought her to play for a survivor, a chazan, a cantor, and her music lifted up his spirit. Tonight, also, several survivors are joining us: Roman Friedman, Zelda Fuchsman, and Frida Jeffey. Trips to Israel. Throughout the last 30 or so years, hundreds of Canadians have traveled to Israel on one of the dozens of Israel tours led by Pastor Rudy and his wife Gina. They have not just visited the country, but people have learned to look at it through Pastor Rudy's eyes. The miracle of the reborn nation of Israel, the ingathering of the exiles, as it had been foretold by the prophets. The nation that, through its many inventions and innovative medical programs, has become a true blessing to the world. Pastor Rudy is also actively involved in many fundraising efforts on behalf of the Jewish community in Israel. Now, I want you to realize something. The members of his church give out of the goodness of their hearts. I cannot express enough how much they love Israel and want to support us. His fundraising efforts have benefited many important projects in Israel. Finally, well, I could go on for much longer, but I will mention just one more thing. Pastor Rudy is a tireless networker. He connects people, and in this way, he weaves community. He builds bridges between the Jewish community and many other communities in Winnipeg. There are no silos for Pastor Rudy. He moves effortlessly between different groups. So, when the mayor of Jerusalem visited Winnipeg last year, of course he met with the leaders of the Jewish community. But first, he visited Pastor Rudy's church and met with many leaders of the Christian community that Pastor Rudy had assembled there, and rightly so. So this evening, it is my honor to give you Pastor Rudy Fidel.
Pastor Fidel, please take the floor.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ruth. I think just as much about you as you do about us. We love you dearly and love working with B'nai Brith. And our relationship with B'nai Brith goes back 23 years. And I must say, the first time my wife and I, Gina, well, I have to give Gina, just want to welcome her. She's awesome. And like our first guest, I wouldn't be where I am without her. Her support, her love, it's very special. And yeah, the first program that we did with B'nai Brith was On to Every Person There's a Name. It changed my life. It really did. Just seeing the value of the life of every human being, and then meeting survivors and seeing the tattoos on their arm. Felix Opatowski, 143425. That was his number, and when he said it to the capo in Auschwitz, he was slapped and said, "That's not your name. You know, it was your number." And so I learned the value of human life, and I must say, it's not hard to give back to the Jewish community because you gave us the scriptures, and I want to thank the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of Israel, for all that he has done. And just I want to thank my mentor, my pastor. I had a woman pastor, Dr. Ingrid Bergner, who actually studied the rabbis and taught me to love Israel in a greater way. Back in 1986, first time we went to India for 3 weeks. Well, she had to go through Israel, introduced me to Israel. And she was there first time in 1967. With B'nai Brith, we've done so many amazing programs. And I want to also acknowledge Ellen Newsom, who was the first director that I worked with. We did so many projects. Ellen was just tireless. We were two totally different people, but yet somehow we got a lot of things accomplished. And one of the things was in 2005, we did a tour, March of the Living tour, again, life-changing. That's where we met Felix Opatowski from Markham area. There's a Felix Opatowski Park that was actually on an event of the On to Every Person There's a Name with B'nai Brith. It was dedicated on that day. I can't remember the year. I think it was around 2008, 2009. And we just did so many special things together. And as a result, B'nai Brith helped me through their professionalism and also with Rabbi Alan Green from Sherry Zadok Synagogue. We were able to do the very first official Yom HaShoah service in Manitoba history in our church. And what an honor. And we had Philip Weiss and also Anya Van Tongeren, who just passed away. I'm probably going beyond my time here, but I can't speak enough good things that we've done together with B'nai Brith. Also, I think of our church was the only church in Hassan Moshe Krause's history. He was the first Hassan of the IDF in 1948. And he just passed away last year at the age of 100. And we were the only church that he ever spoke in. It was such an honor. And we just became friends. And I know, I believe Norman Fryman, Zelda Fuchsman and Frida Jaffe are listening today. I love you three and anyone else who's a survivor, Larry Vicker, anyone who's just sharing a special night with us. Thank you so much. And also I want to mention one person's name that just passed away, Annalie Chiproot from the Ottawa area. She was just a treasure of treasures, and I know she's in heaven. now, and she's just watching us and encouraging us to just do more for Israel today. And I had a chat with Dr. Ruth just before this, and she enlivened me. She encouraged me. Now, just listening to her speak, and I just know that we need to start planning a trip to go to Israel and planning a trip to go to the areas, that were actually attacked. Not just a real, B'nai Brith trip. We should start thinking about it. And a lot of groups have gone already. We need to put feet to our action and go. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Fidel. Before I make a few comments, let's show the certificate on screen. And it reads, B'nai Brith recognizes the leadership of Pastor Rudy Fidel in fostering important and ongoing dialogue between Christians and Jews in Manitoba, and commends him for his work to preserve the memory of the Holocaust. Thank you, Pastor Fidel, for your work over the years. You have been both an advocate for the Jewish people and a friend of B'nai Brith. So in effect, you've won 2 Oscars tonight instead of one. We could say it that way.
I just said one more person I have to acknowledge, Earl Barish as well.
Earl Barish, we know well. Earl
and Cheryl, are just great friends, and we were at Salisbury House today, enjoying their restaurant, and so just want to say hi to them if they're watching.
I had the privilege of being invited to their home the last time I was in Winnipeg, which I believe, and Ruth can correct me, was September 2022 as part of our Diverse Minds program. I happened to run into Earl, who I was going to meet the next day as part of the ceremony, at a pizza restaurant. He happened to sit right next to me. By coincidence, the guy I was supposed to meet the next day was sitting next to me. We got chatting. We realized we were going to be meeting, and so he invited me over to his house. It was really interesting. But I wanted to let you know that Manitoba is working on Holocaust remembrance. It's one of the main tasks of the League for Human Rights is to promote better Holocaust education in Canada, and we've been extremely successful. The government of Ontario has introduced mandatory Holocaust education to elementary school, becoming essentially the first to do this, teaching grade 6. It spurred a couple of others to begin looking at that or begin doing that. Manitoba already had a pretty good curriculum with some Holocaust education in grade 8 and more Holocaust education in grade 10. It was actually one of the better provinces. But however, Premier Canoe committed during the recent election campaign, to do even better. And we're in touch with Education Minister Alton, and we're going to be speaking with him shortly about how Manitoba can grab that gold standard that Ontario has thrown out there to everybody else. But I just want you to know, in the last couple of months, due to my work and my team, particularly Luca Fuena, we've convinced 6 provinces and the Yukon Territory to go forward with better Holocaust education. So Holocaust remembrance is important. Thank you again, Pastor Fidel, for your work.
Thank you.
Our next awardee is in New Brunswick. Her name is Marilyn Kaufman, and I'll be doing her introduction. Now, people tell me all the time, there isn't a Jewish community in New Brunswick. Well, they're wrong. There is a Jewish community. It numbers about 2,000 people. There are 3 congregations, one in Fredericton, where Marilyn resides, one in Moncton, and one in St. John. And in fact, Jewish community in New Brunswick goes back to before Confederation. New Brunswick was founded in 1784, and Jews have been part of the landscape in New Brunswick since. They've contributed in many, many ways to the well-being and success of the province of New Brunswick. And as such, many of them have been extremely prominent in building the economy, in working with government, in culture, and other fields. Marilyn is a retired public school educator. She's a graduate of the University of New Brunswick. She holds a Bachelor of Physical Education, Certificate 1B, which she obtained in 1974, and Certificate 5 in 2000. As a member of the New Brunswick Teachers Federation, she was active both at the local and provincial levels. She served 3 terms as Fredericton's branch president and 3 terms as branch director on the New Brunswick Teachers Association and New Brunswick Teachers Federation provincial boards, respectively. Marilyn was recognized by the New Brunswick Heart and Stroke Foundation for many years of service with the New Brunswick School Jump Rope for Heart program. In 1991, she became one of the founding members of the New Brunswick Elementary Drama Festival, and later years, she served on the board of the Fredericton Playhouse. She has served on the National Jewish Boards representing Atlantic Canada, one of 6 vice presidents of Hadassah WISO Canada, a local partner chair for Center for Israel Jewish Affairs, board member of Jewish Federations of Canada. In 2004, she was recipient of the Atlantic Jewish Council Community Service Award in recognition of her voluntary work with both the Jewish and non-Jewish communities. More recently, as president of Atlantic Jewish Council, she guided the Atlantic Jewish communities through COVID and continues to serve as a member at large. She's an active member of Sugale Israel Synagogue in Fredericton. Marilyn served as the synagogue's first female president, encouraging outreach with other faith communities, partnering with the local library for Jewish Israel programming while teaching Hebrew school and giving Hebrew classes to adults in the greater Fredericton area. She has been an active participant in Canada's Small Community Regional Forum under the umbrella of JFC-UIA. Presently, she is co-chair of the Federation Anti-Semitism Committee. She was instrumental in having the province of New Brunswick and the city of Fredericton issue proclamations recognizing Israel's 75th anniversary of independence and Jewish Heritage Month in May. She has just completed a 2-year tenure as a Fredericton Jewish community representative on the mayor's Fredericton Municipal Anti-Racism Task Force, which has incorporated anti-Semitism, a part of its anti-racism strategy, and which has had City Council accept a recommendation to adopt the IRA definition of anti-Semitism. Marilyn is married to Seymour. They have 4 children and 2 grandchildren. Now, if that gives you a portrait of someone who's active, I can assure you she is. She's been a great aid to my work in Atlantic Canada, giving me very, very good advice of who to contact for all sorts of things. She was a great aid recently in steering me to the right people in Moncton when the city of Moncton ill-advisedly said it was no longer going to celebrate Hanukkah and that the menorah would no longer be lit. Marilyn put me in touch with people at the mayor's office, and that helped to get a reversal of policy and a discussion going in the city of Moncton. I give the floor to Marilyn Kaufman.
Thank you very much. I guess I was just waiting for the video. Thank you very much, Marvin, and as well, Michael. It is indeed a pleasure to be with you and all the other awardees this evening. Today is January 17th, which is Raoul Wallenberg Day, if many of you didn't know. And the Canadian government had designated him as the country's first honorary citizen, and it was established as the 17th of January and as a national commemoration. And as most of us know, Wallenberg was the Swedish special envoy in Budapest in 1944 and is credited with saving a number of lives of Hungarian Jews from the Nazis. So how appropriate it is that we have the award of the B'nai Brith Emissary Awards. Human rights, with it bring responsibilities. And proud of the fact that I come from New Brunswick, with John Humphrey, along with Eleanor Roosevelt, drafted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I've always been active, and I think with it comes maybe from my parents, who have been very involved with the Jewish communities. My father was very involved with B'nai Brith Lodge in Fredericton. And I could say it was maybe in search of Jewish identity. When you come from a small community, you look for that relationship of Yiddishkeit. And if you don't find it here in this community where almost everybody in a small community is related, you tend to go a little bit further afield. And so that's why I guess I had my involvement in so many different types of communities in Jewish organizations. In school, I always taught my students, be the best that you can be. You're here, you have a free education. take advantage of it. You can travel wherever you want to go. If you read books, you can go anywheres, and it doesn't cost you too much. Children are born not to hate, but that's something they are taught. And in school, we try to teach people to respect one another and to relate to one another and accept one another. And sometimes that's more difficult, and trying to overcome certain obstacles and certain challenges. Many things that I think go into school we see nowadays in terms of anti-Semitism, and it is very high in terms of what we're trying to combat here, and even in our small communities. And recently we had students being harassed in our schools. We've had on our public walking trails with anti-Semitic graffiti, as well as posters and so on, that we've had to have taken down. In a small community like ours, we have about 55,000 people, generally speaking. We have a good relationship with our law enforcement, with our MLAs, with our mayor's office, with our MP, Jenica Atwin, who many of you may know, and I actually attended a roundtable with the Minister of Immigration and her this afternoon. So it gives us an opportunity to, I guess, build stronger relationships with those individuals in terms of allyships and so forth. The importance of Jewish identity with the youth, with our generation, is extremely important. And in my generation, when I grew up, Israel was also growing up. So in a sense, we grew up along parallel lines with one another in terms of our development. And I would say that it's more difficult and more challenging instilling that sense of Yiddishkeit and motivation within our youth today. And we're constantly looking at different ways in which to do that. We've built relationships with local partners, such as our library, in terms of our programming, which is extremely important. We have also had opportunities to go further afield with a women's group, Interfaith and Faith in Diversity, which I'm a member of and which we have developed and we continue to do. We have contact with our regional small communities, which we, under Perry Romberg, which gives us information on various things in other small communities as to what's going on and what's taking place. We have our JNF functions and so forth. So all in all, it's although we are from New Brunswick, and although they say we are small, we are mighty. And I think with the prominence of the Hanukkah menorah, which we in Fredericton were considering and actually looked into doing our own last year, but it was so late in the year that we kind of let that go. It caused quite the waves going right across Canada and internationally in terms of the reaction that it had. Whether it's a March for Soviet Jewry back in the 70s, which some of you may remember with Natan Sharansky and Ida Nadal. Now in terms of bring them home with our Israeli abductees. And we had our silent vigil here, as most communities did. So we're right in the thick of things. And we know that we have to combat anti-Semitism from every angle and to keep going. And we have to remain optimistic and remember that we are one people. Am Yisrael Achai.
Thank you very, very much, Marilyn. Let us show Marilyn's certificate on screen. And it reads, B'nai Brith recognizes Marilyn Kaufman for her lifetime of activism and leadership in the Jewish community in Atlantic Canada, including occupying important posts at her synagogue and at the Atlantic Jewish Council, and commends her for her partnering with our organization, leading to New Brunswick's adopting the IRA definition of anti-Semitism. Thank you ever so much, Marilyn. I want to clarify for everyone that New Brunswick had adopted IRA before I got to B'nai Brith, a work that was championed by Minister Dominic Cardy at the time with the Premier's support. But our interpretation was the motion had some weaknesses to it. And we came back to New Brunswick. Marilyn helped there, and we suggested some minor modifications. And we had excellent cooperation from Premier Higgs, and they adopted a new version of the IRA definition. I also want to let you know that New Brunswick is promoting Holocaust education as well. And recently they had an exhibit, a traveling exhibit that was opened at the Jewish Museum in St. John, and which is a model which we're touting to other provinces as well. In fact, we just put the founder of the exhibit in touch with the government of the Yukon last week to see if they could work together and get a similar exhibit in Whitehorse, because the Yukon has just committed to grafting the British Columbia grade 10 curriculum on Holocaust education into their schools. And that's very, very good news. Thank you ever so much, Marilyn. We'll go to our fourth awardee, who is Karen Leibovici from Edmonton, Alberta. I knew Karen a long, long time before I came on board at B'nai Brith. Karen was an elected official. Like me, she was a city councillor. For those on the call who don't know, I served on Montreal City Council from 1982 to 2021. During that time, I ran across Karen several times. She was very active in the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and in fact, she served a term as president of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. In other words, she had the confidence of her peers from across Canada. And in that capacity, she advocated for many important issues for municipalities, or infrastructure, financing, improvement of public transit, a more equitable sharing of tax bases. One of the greatest complaints of municipalities is, while we are the level of service that provides citizens the bulk of their day-to-day services, we only get 7 cents on every dollar of taxes collected in Canada. Karen moved up from there to the Alberta legislature, where she served for many years as well. She also ran for mayor of Edmonton. I believe she was one of the first Jewish candidates running for mayor of Edmonton. While she did not win, I believe Karen was a very strong second and well respected for her civility, her ability to work across the political spectrum, and for having a solid, meaty program. She has been a longtime supporter of B'nai Brith, active with our group in Alberta. Karen is currently out of the country, and I invite her to come and take the floor from wherever she is in the United States today. Karen, the floor is yours.
Thanks so much. And I thought I saw Rob on as well.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. This is a problem from your host, who forgot. Rob Christie is supposed to give the formal introduction. Abe Silverman from our Alberta office was supposed to introduce you, a longer introduction than I just gave, and he had a family conflict. I'm going to ask Rob Christie to flesh out my remarks before we go to Karen. Rob, my apologies for that. That's what happens when you turn a little bit on the north side of 70, which I am. Rob, it's yours.
I know that too, because I'm there as well. Thank you, Marvin. As you mentioned, Abe would, of course, I'd love to have been here, but he is with his family, his children, his great-grandchildren. They're celebrating what would have been his wife Toby's 80th birthday today. So on behalf of Abe, manager of public relations, B'nai Brith Canada, Alberta region, it is my honor to bring to you our choice for the Alberta B'nai Brith Emissary. Karen Leibovici was born to a Jewish immigrant family, and Karen's first language as a child was Yiddish. Shana Madel. I hope I got that right. It was clear that Karen would go on to be a leader in every stage of her life. In high school in Montreal, also my hometown, she was a cheerleader and president of the Outremont High School Council. At McGill University, also my alma mater, she became the editor of the McGill School of Social Work. It's funny we never dated, really. She worked with the Anti-Poverty Coalition in Montreal and helped organize various causes at the local Jewish Community Center. Upon graduation from university, Karen traveled around the world and gained an appreciation of various cultures. It was an experience that served her well in her passion and her need to serve. In 1980, Karen and her husband, Stephen Zepp, moved to Edmonton. Karen worked in labor relations at the City of Edmonton and also became the City of Edmonton's first equal opportunity officer. While raising a family, Karen's attention turned to provincial politics, becoming the president of the Jasper Place Liberal Constituency Association and a candidate for public office. She was elected MLA in 1993, a moment I remember well, as a member for Edmonton Meadowlark, my constituency, and held many critic positions, including labor, health, and was also the caucus whip. Karen Leibovici was respected by all sides of the legislature and was appointed as the first non-government MLA to be part of the Pacific Northwest delegation. In 2001, Karen was elected to Edmonton City Council and served 4 consecutive terms on City Council. Karen was involved with and started many initiatives. She was known as the go-to person who got things done. Among her many accomplishments was establishing the City Hall School program, which provides the opportunity for elementary school children to spend time at City Hall and see what the big kids are doing. Karen is equally proud of starting the initiative that led to naming 101A Avenue to Okisiko Angel Way to raise awareness and work towards reducing violence against women and children. Her leadership abilities were recognized by her peers as she became the president of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and the chair of the Green Municipal Fund. Karen is the recipient of many awards, including the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Roll of Honor. Karen Leibovici is also included in the Who's Who of Canadian Women and was recently, along with her husband, honored at a Beth Israel Synagogue Gala. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that, like myself, Karen was a judge for the B'nai Brith Diverse Minds Creative Writing Competition for high school students. Her work on behalf of the Edmonton Jewish community is legendary. Both Karen and Stephen and family are very proud of their Jewish roots. Karen was the first Jewish woman elected to the Alberta legislature and proudly displayed the mezuzot on both her legislature and city hall offices, a first in Alberta. Both Abe and myself were proud to work with Karen, who co-chaired the committee that honored former Minister Stockwell Day at a very successful gala where Stockwell was presented with the B'nai Brith Award for Merit for his unwavering and principled support of Israel and the Jewish people. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to present Ms. Karen Leibovici.
Karen, please
Thanks
take the
so much, Rob. You've always been a good friend to me and to the Jewish community in Edmonton. And thank you, Marvin, for that introduction as well. Your memory was pretty good. I think you mixed up. I was MLA first and then city councilor, but it was all good. And I also wanted to thank Abe Silverman for nominating me. Abe is a tireless advocate for the Jewish community in Alberta, and we're all thankful for his amazing achievements. He's achieved more than many could ever imagine. And so thank you to B'nai Brith. And also please thank Michael for me for this honor as well, Marvin. I'm incredibly honored to be one of B'nai Brith's first recipients of this prestigious award. And as I listen to the amazing group of honorees, I kind of wonder why I'm in this mix. You've all done amazing work, and I know that Marvin, you had indicated you were going to be expanding and moving forward with this idea of having emissaries, and I think it's a wonderful idea. So thank you. This award really belongs to many. It's not solely my award, because without the help and support of my family and friends and the broader community, there's no way that I would be here today. I've been lucky in both my life and my careers. And I noticed that my father and mother are both online. And I just want to say hi to them. They're in Montreal, and they're fabulous. They're the ones that made me who I am. They are my moral compass. And as a child of immigrant parents, they instilled in me first principles that I carry to this day. The principles of doing what's right, truth, kindness, making the world a better place. Those are my guides. And from generation to generation, L'dor v'dor, these principles of tzedakah and tikkun olam have been the unbroken link that has united us all as Jews, sustained us, and given us strength. Recently, my husband and I came back from a trip to Romania and Eastern Europe, where we went to find my grandmother's grave, and yes, we did find it. This trip was a brutal reminder of the persecution, exile, and hatred that Jews have endured for thousands of years. And now we're facing the same. The world, to me, has become unrecognizable as we watch with horror the atrocities committed, the fake news that we see every day, and the grip of ignorance that's amongst nations and amongst people. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the sacrifices that Israelis and the brave soldiers of the IDF are making daily to ensure that Israel remains strong and that we are safe in our communities worldwide. You are a beacon of hope to all of us, and so thank you, thank you. As Jews, we live in many countries, lead diverse lives, and encounter different experiences. And being Jewish can be a challenge. We've heard of some of them tonight, of the work that's been done by the other honorees. Yet despite this, we have faced our challenges head on. We have fought, we have survived, and we've become stronger. Maintaining our heritage is a testament to our collective resilience. And so from generation to generation, we have stood firm and united in preserving our traditions, our identity, our culture, and our religion. We've stayed true to tikkun olam and tzedakah, trying to make the world a better place for future generations. To me, this is what defines the essence of being Jewish. Throughout my life, I've been very fortunate to work with diverse communities. Bridging the gap between the Jewish community and the broader community has been a privilege, which has allowed me to witness the strength that emerges when different cultures work together towards common goals. As a B'nai Brith human rights emissary, I pledge to do my part to live up to the ideals that this honor represents. And together, I hope that we can continue to build bridges, repair the world, and ensure that the flame of our heritage burns for eternity. So thank you very much for this honor. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you for bringing up what's in the back of all our minds. We gather tonight to honor people who have worked hard for the Jewish community, for B'nai Brith across Canada, but in the back of our minds, the situation in Israel is alarming and preoccupying, and it's always going to be there, even though tonight we talk about Canada and what we're doing here. Can I ask that the certificate for Karen be shown on the screen? And it reads, B'nai Brith recognizes the leadership of Karen Leibovici as a strong voice for the Jewish community, spanning 8 years in the Alberta legislature and 12 years as an Edmonton city councillor, and commends her for her decades of support, aiding our success in combating anti-Semitism. Congratulations, Karen.
Thank you.
And by the way, as a former city councillor, we both know councillors work far harder than MLAs or MNAs or MPPs, right? And
absolutely
are closer to the people who can pick up the phone and actually call you at home. So thank you for your public service over the years. We'll now go to our next awardee, Alton Brooks in Brampton, Ontario. Alton is a proud Jamaican Canadian. I only met Alton for the first time in June 2022. I was introduced to Alton by Mark Henry, the president of the Jamaica Association of Montreal, and Sharon Nelson, the first vice president of the Jamaica Association of Montreal. B'nai Brith was working with the government of Ontario on its anti-hate, anti-racism program, And we did not have the same type of connections with the Black community in Ontario that we did in Quebec and a couple of other provinces. I was introduced to Alton. I said, I need your help. Within a couple of days, Alton had managed to convince a lot of groups and a lot of individuals that they needed to work with us jointly to address issues of hate that targeted the Jewish community, issues of hate that targeted the Black community, and to build on historic links that existed that had been sort of allowed to cool a bit. We held a Zoom call in which Alton agreed to speak on behalf of the Jamaican community. He spoke as an individual, but he spoke for a lot of people. And that got the ball rolling in terms of work that we did with the Black community in 2022 and 2023 through Ontario. It culminated with Alton and his family attending our roadshow, our symposium that took part in Toronto in July of 2023 as part of a program in which we were promoting the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism. We were working with the government of Canada to explain to the population why the IRA definition was important, why it needed to be adopted by more jurisdictions across Canada. And by the way, currently, aside from the government of Canada, 6 of the 10 provinces have formally adopted the IRA definition, either by order in council or legislative motion. And in fact, several of them, including Alberta and Manitoba, have done both. They've had an order in council and a debate in the legislature to endorse the IRA definition. Alton promoted that symposium in the Black community, and there were quite a few people from various organizations who came to hear what we had to say, and that's broadened our work with Caribbean communities through Ontario and other groups in the Black community. Alton is a passionate voice in the community in combating anti-Semitism. He's a reliable ally, always willing to attend and to promote joint collaborative work between Jews and Blacks. We have, according to him, so much in common, and so we can advance our joint agendas by working together. I give the floor to Alton Brooks, who is in Brampton, Ontario. Alton.
Thank you so much, Marvin. And I'd like to thank the B'nai Brith for this prestigious Emissary Award. And congratulations to the other award winners as well. I spent the vast part of my life helping to build bridges between people, as we really are one people under the mixture of various cultures. Now, I'm reminded this week of Martin Luther King, whose birthday was on Monday, that his dream is still alive and well. We have an opportunity to rise to the challenge of loving others, because we are human first, and before anything else. Before any differences, we bleed the same blood. I've served in many multicultural community groups and advisories over the last 20 years, and I helped to bring a balanced ideology to these groups. And I hope my time and work with the B'nai Brith and working with this esteemed committee led by Marvin has assisted in helping to bring things we have in common to the forefront versus our differences. In fact, there's such a strong history as well with Jewish people and Jamaicans working together. So it makes sense to continue that. And there's a big history of that I found out about being on this committee. So appreciate some of that was shared by those with the historical knowledge. Anti-racism is a joint exercise for all of us, as it affects how successful we are in our schools, healthcare, and employment. Our history is important. Our stories are important, and they should be told and available to be shared with all cultures without trying to hide our history. I would also like to thank my children who embody and live with an open border approach and have a variety of friends of all races and cultures. I am proud of them for showing the way, and that encourages me to continue to build bridges with each other's people. I count among friends people from all continents, and I'm very proud of that. Let's not be ashamed of yesterday. Today's here. Let's be proud of today and tomorrow. I close by saying the time is always right to do right. We cannot drive out hate with hate, but as we learn to love one another and cherish each other and for the differences that we offer, let's get fulfillment out of our lives by drawing closer versus going farther apart. So again, I'd like to thank B'nai Brith for this award. I appreciate it very much. Thank you for recognizing my efforts in the community and for all the work with anti-racism. We hope that one day we may not have to give out these awards because that'll be a thing of the past. But we continue to work forward, and hopefully one day we can say the word victory and that it's been erased. Thank you again, Marvin, for recognizing me for this award, and I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Alton. Thank you for always being available. And thank you for wise counsel when I seek it. Can we show Alton's certificate on the screen? And it reads, B'nai Brith recognizes the important contributions of Alton Brooks to the success of its anti-racism, anti-hate program for the Ontario Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism, and commends him for promoting dialogue between the Black and Jewish communities. And I cannot stress how important Alton's contribution has to helping us get off the ground in Ontario, Canada's most populous province. We're now going to go to Western Canada. We're going to go to someone who's complaining it was too cold and couldn't get to Palm Springs the other day. And that's my good friend, David Katzman. And yes, I call him a friend. Saskatchewan, like New Brunswick earlier, has a small Jewish population, but it's equally vigorous. It's equally historic. Jews date back in Saskatchewan to the earliest day, not only before Confederation, but before the railway. There were farming communities, Jewish farming communities in remote areas of what is today Saskatchewan as early as the 1880s. And Jews have played a big role in the province, and they've been recognized for their role. I'd like to introduce David Katzman, who is in Saskatoon. Now, David has been actively involved in B'nai Brith even longer than Eddie Rice. In 1972, he was one of the co-founders and managers of the B'nai Brith Screaming Chickens hockey team. Only in Saskatchewan, you get a name like that. David was the president of a synagogue from 2004 to 2008, the Agudas Israel in Saskatoon. In 2010 to the present day, is the president of B'nai Brith Saskatoon. He was the co-chair of B'nai Brith Silver Plate Dinner from 1983 to 2022. He's actively involved in the B'nai Brith Lodge. He's a member of the Saskatoon Children's Hospitals Foundation Board. It was between 1992 2005. He served on the Multi-Faith Board between 2010 and 2018. Involved in all sorts of good work and good causes. As a professional, he was he worked for the government of Saskatchewan as a civil servant. He has aided our work in Saskatchewan, including our very successful province-wide call that was held under the cloud of what was going on in Israel early in October, in which all the rabbis, every single one of them in Saskatchewan, there are 4, took part and spoke, where 2 government ministers spoke, including the Minister of Justice and the Minister of Culture, where leaders of community gathered to discuss the situation of Jews in Saskatchewan. Due to David's good work, B'nai Brith has good contacts with the government of Saskatchewan, including the Premier. Saskatchewan adopted the IRA definition. The introductions were done by David. The rest of the work was done by myself. I thank Saskatchewan for always taking my calls. If every province was as interested in combating anti-Semitism as Saskatchewan is, the cause of fighting anti-Semitism would be more front and center in Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan also has committed to better Holocaust education. More work is going on. The Minister of Education recently announced changes that will add better and mandatory Holocaust education to the grade 10 curriculum. We, of course, are continuing to work with the province to advocate for instruction in elementary school as well. And we will be having a call very shortly with the top civil servants in the province. David, you're now supposedly retired, I'm told, like me, supposedly retired full-time at work. And you continue your good work for the Jewish community. I understand recently you hosted the premier at an event in Saskatoon, a dinner that had over 800 people. It's just an indication of the type of work that you do for the Jewish community day in and day out. David Katzman, please take the floor.
Well, thank you for that very kind introduction, Marvin. I'm very happy to receive this honor, but I know that everyone's happiness and joy is limited by what happened on October 7th and continues to haunt us to this moment and threatens our future. My 4 years in the B'nai Brith Youth Organization shaped me for life. The knowledge, skills, and attitudes that I learned were essential to my professional and personal development. My 40 years in B'nai Brith created and cemented many important personal relationships, but more importantly, gave me opportunities to, in small ways and a few not so small ways, to engage in tzedakah, to be part of fixing the world. Every member of our lodge is a beneficiary of the traditions and remarkable successes provided by our predecessors. And I hope my generation proved and will continue to prove that we were worthy of being the inheritors of their legacy. In November, we will host our 70th consecutive annual Silver Plate Dinner, Saskatoon's premier working event for over 900 of our city's business and professional leaders. And I believe it's important to understand that no more than 50 of the 900 people attending will be Jewish. We believe that this event and the tzedakah that is made possible because of this event have been most effective in maintaining and enhancing the relationship of our small Jewish community to the larger community. These galas provided the funds that launched many significant projects, including our new children's hospital, the Optimus Boarding Hill and Ski Hill, and the Saskatchewan Jewish Arts Festival. We believe in being proactive, and it's a significant element in addressing anti-Semitism. I share this honor with my dear wife, Susan, who has made all of this possible for me. I couldn't have done that without her love, encouragement, and support. She made our home a joy for Miriam, Daniel, Jonathan, and me, and she'll always be the center of our family constellation that now includes our children's partners and our grandchildren. I can't imagine our life without you, Susan, and I look forward to every coming day with you, especially the days when you let me win at least one of the card games. As an individual, I could not have done much to help either our Jewish community or the city of Saskatoon. As a member of B'nai Brith, we've done much to leave a legacy. B'nai Brith has, in countless and significant ways, shaped a significant part of my life and has made a difference in Saskatoon, just as it has across Canada and the world. Thank you for this honor. Am Yisrael Chai.
Thank you, David. Thanks for being a friend. Thanks for always taking my calls. Thank you for opening doors for me. I feel like a giant in Saskatchewan, but it's really your work that's allowed me to win all those successes. Can we please show David's certificate on screen? It reads, B'nai Brith salutes David Katzman for a lifetime of involvement in Jewish organizations in Saskatchewan, promoting the community's social, cultural, and religious life, and commends him for his work with our organization, leading to the province adopting the IRA definition of anti-Semitism and May as Jewish Heritage Month. By the way, I forgot to mention earlier, when I came on board at B'nai Brith, I noticed no one in Canada was doing anything for Jewish Heritage Month. I've been pushing and pushing. We have almost 100 communities now that have adopted motions, recognized the months, a couple of provinces, and we're trying to do more for it as to build the month to be something that will educate the Canadian public to the contributions Jews have made to this country, build pride in our community, and build friendship outside our community. And David went to the province of Saskatchewan and helped with getting them to pass a resolution that May is recognized as Jewish Heritage Month in Saskatchewan. Thank you, David. We are now going to go to our next awardee, who is in Montreal, someone I knew when I was a city councilor. The Filipino community in Quebec numbers about 40,000. The majority of them live on the island of Montreal. One of the prime Filipino leaders in Quebec is Luzviminda Mazzone, better known as Minda to most people, who is the president of the Federation of Filipino Canadian Associations of Quebec. It's an umbrella organization that represents all the major Filipino groups in the province, having collectively somewhere north of 20,000 members, most of whom are extremely active because they're constantly lobbying politicians, including myself during my term of office. When I came aboard at B'nai Brith, it was a natural that I meet with the Federation, and we immediately discovered that they were working on some of the same issues as we are. I'd like to point out that with Minda's leadership, the Federation of Filipino Canadian Associations of Quebec became one of the first civil organizations in the province to adopt the IRA definition of anti-Semitism. There are over 1,000 jurisdictions that have adopted IRA. They're not all government. They include some cultural and religious organizations, but they also include businesses and social organizations such as a federation. According to Minda, it was an important statement by the Filipino community in Quebec. They stand in solidarity with Jews. They felt the need to promote the IRA definition. They also were instrumental in aiding us with the celebration in 2023 of Jewish Heritage Month, and worked with us to celebrate June as Filipino Heritage Month. On June 1st, 2023, we held a global call to pass the baton from Jewish Heritage Month to Filipino Heritage Month. The ambassador of the Philippines to Canada spoke, as did the ambassador of Israel to Canada. The former ambassadors of the Philippines to Canada were also on the call, as were foreign affairs official in Manila. Members of the Senate in Canada spoke. Members of the Senate in the Philippines spoke. Members of Parliament in Canada spoke. Members of Congress in the Philippines spoke. Community leaders in the Jewish community attended and spoke. Community leaders in the Philippines and the Filipino community here in Canada also spoke. It was an unparalleled success, building true and durable bridges. We alerted Canadians to something many did not know. During the Holocaust, one of the few places in the world that gladly opened its doors to Jewish refugees fleeing for shelter was the Philippines. President Manuel Quezon said, "I will save as many as I could." The Philippines was a commonwealth at the time, not fully independent, and the US State Department threw up impediments. Still, several thousand people were rescued in the Philippines. There are excellent relationships between Israel and the Republic of the Philippines, and there is a warm and loving feeling in the Filipino community for Jews and the state of Israel. We are trying to build on that relationship, and Minda has been a key element in doing it. I invite Minda Mazzone to take the floor.
Thank you, Marvin. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez, for that kind introduction. I'm truly honored to receive this award. The Jewish community can continue to count on my ongoing friendship, solidarity, and support. While I'm being honored as an individual, I would like to share this award with the entire membership of the Federation of Filipino Canadian Associations of Quebec. Without the active and enthusiastic support of our board and our membership, I would not be here today to receive this recognition. We are an umbrella organization representing a dozen major Filipino community groups in Quebec. Collectively, we speak for over 20,000 people and are active in many domains, from community welfare, sports, culture, leisure for seniors and youth, and the promotion of the Filipino heritage. We have long been aware of the Filipino friendship, a historic friendship of Filipinos and Jews. Our national hero, Dr. Jose Rizal, promoted brotherhood and equality and spoke out against racial and religious intolerance. His values had become the bedrock of the modern-day Republic of the Philippines. While he died tragically young before the birth of our too short-lived First Republic, his values inspired those who came after, including Commonwealth President Manuel Quezon, who opened the door to Jewish refugees fleeing the Holocaust at the time that other nations, including Canada, slammed their doors shut. However, until the nomination of Marvin Rotran as B'nai Brith National Director of its League for Human Rights, we had no formal contact with any Jewish organization in Canada. Mr. Rotran, of course, is well known in our community. His work as a longtime Montreal city councilor is admired. He helped obtain funding for major Filipino events such as the Independence Day and the Pisto Sanayon. He convinced City Council to create a new public place named after Dr. Jose Rizal, which is now a fresh and attractive area of repose at which there are many events hosted by the Filipino organizations each year. Importantly, his work led to the adoption by Montreal of June as Filipino Heritage Month. That work convinced Parliament to make the Heritage Month national. Thus, when Mr. Rotran approached us to see how Jews and Filipinos in Canada could enhance the relationship, he found an attentive ear. We knew that the Jewish population, despite representing only slightly more than 1% of the Canadian population, comprised the most targeted group for hate crimes. In fact, the annual statistics issued by police departments and Statistics Canada convincingly prove we have an anti-Semitism problem in this country, and it has been getting worse year after year. Mr. Rotran urged us to adopt the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism. We agreed that doing so would be a concrete gesture of support to the Jewish community. I want to thank Jovi Narvas, my vice president, for working with me toward the adoption of a motion by our board adhering to the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. We spoke with our members, showing them that definition was easy to understand and clear in identifying what is anti-Semitism. In our view, it's not just for governments to adopt the IHRA definition, but also for civil society to do so. We are proud to be among the approximately 1,000 organizations that do not represent the government to have adopted the IHRA definition. At this difficult time, when Israel is responding to the brutal attack by the Hamas terrorists that killed 1,200 Israelites, it's more important than ever that we stand in solidarity with the Jewish state and Jews everywhere. One way we can do that is to continue to promote the IHRA definition. We agree that the Honorable Erwin Cutler has stated that the IHRA definition is both the most authoritative and most effective definition for combating anti-Semitism. The Hamas war against Israel has seen an explosion of anti-Semitism in Canada and other Western countries by supporters of hate and terror. Police and government response has been inadequate. Far more needs to be done, including making our law enforcement, our educators, and our civil servants aware of the definition. We note that the government of Canada and 6 provinces have adopted the IHRA definition. We credit both Mr. Rotran and Mr. Cutler for much of that success. Yet we note Quebec is not on the list of provinces to have formally adopted the definition. Most members of the National Assembly are on the record stating they support the definition. We invite Premier Legault to show the leadership needed to adopt the definition. Last June 1st, B'nai Brith, League for Human Rights and the Filipino Heritage Month Society co-hosted the global Zoom call to pass the torch from May as Jewish Heritage Month to June as Filipino Heritage Month. It was an unparalleled success featuring Maria Andrelita Austria, Philippines Ambassador to Canada, then Israel Ambassador to Canada, Dr. Ronen Hoffman, senators in both the Philippines and Canada, elected officials at all levels, and community leaders as speakers. The global event significantly enhanced the relationship between our communities. It received coverage in the Philippines. Particularly poignant was the presentation during the evening of Neil Imperial of our Foreign Affairs Department, showcasing archival material from our embassy in Tel Aviv as our country's rescue of Jews during the Holocaust. I hope we can build on that this year. Let us celebrate our Heritage Months together. You can count on the Federation of Filipino-Canadian Associations of Quebec as a partner. We look forward to a call from Mr. Rotran and Mr. Mostin in March or April to discuss how can we make such an event a success in 2024. The certificate awarded to me today will be displayed with pride in my home. I thank you for this much appreciated gesture, and please count on me and our organization going forward. Good evening and mabuhay.
Mabuhay. Thank you, Minda. First of all, thank you for the kind personal recognition of the work that I did as a counselor and now at B'nai Brith. It's a pleasure to work with you and your board. But especially heartfelt is your concern for Jewish people everywhere. Your support for the state of Israel carries a great deal of weight for us, and it's very reassuring to the Jewish community to know that our relationship with the Filipino community is so strong. Can we show the Minda certificate on screen? Thank you. And it reads, B'nai Brith recognizes the leadership of Luzviminda Mazzone in building strong links between the Filipino and Jewish communities and commends her for her key role that led to the adoption of the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism by the Federation of Filipino-Canadian Associations of Quebec. Thank you once again, Minda. We'll now go to our last awardee of the evening, Rabbi Andrew Rosenblatt, who is in Vancouver. Rabbi Rosenblatt, in a moment, will be introduced by Ed Lewin, who I want to thank for stepping into the breach. Our British Columbia regional manager, Aaron Cisplaros, has taken leave for a month due to medical reasons. And as such, at the last minute, we were looking for someone to introduce Rabbi Rosenblatt. Herb Silber, our British Columbia board member, suggested Ed, who knows the rabbi and who agreed immediately to step into the breach and to introduce Rabbi Rosenblatt. I have worked with Rabbi Rosenblatt on a couple of issues, and I thank him for having taken part in a call with then Municipal Affairs Minister Nathan Cullen. British Columbia is the only jurisdiction in North America that holds its elections on a Saturday, causing an impediment for Orthodox Jews who respect the Sabbath and who can't vote on Saturday. And while there are other ways to vote in British Columbia, there are fewer options for practicing Jews than there are for other groups in the province. And we've now engaged with the government of British Columbia, and the rabbi's participation on that call was a key element in getting British Columbia to reflect on this. This is an ongoing dossier. It's not resolved yet, but at least there are discussions. And as well, this past October, we held a British Columbia call. That came a few days before the terrible Hamas attack on Israel. It got together ministers, including Minister Selena Robinson, who is Jewish. Most people.
It was a few days after.
Yeah. And sorry, excuse me?
It was a few days after the attack.
A few days after, excuse me. As I mentioned earlier, when you're north of 70, sometimes things become a bit fuzzy. Minister Robinson and MLA Mike Lee, we did have community leaders speak as well, and it's helped our work in British Columbia. I will now give it to Ed Lewin to introduce Rabbi Rosenblatt.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
I apologize for the fact that I look like I'm in a cave, but we had a foot of snow in Vancouver in the last 24 hours. And so 10 minutes into this call, my power went out. So I'm literally with my phone and a flash here. So my name is Eddie Lewin, and I'm a member of the board at Congregation Sharet Tzedek, the shul I grew up in Vancouver. It is both an honor and a privilege to introduce my friend. Rabbi Andrew Rosenblatt has been our spiritual leader since 2003. A native of Baltimore, Maryland, Rabbi Rosenblatt is the great-grandson of renowned chazan and composer Yossele Rosenblatt and grandson of Rabbi Dr. Samuel Rosenblatt. He graduated from Columbia University with a Bachelor of Arts degree in chemistry and English literature and a Master's of Science in bioorganic chemistry. After completing his secular studies, Rabbi Rosenblatt spent 2 years at Yeshivat Har Etzion in Israel and subsequently received smicha from Yeshiva University in New York. Before coming to Vancouver, Rabbi Rosenblatt served as the assistant rabbi with Congregation Ahavat Torah. Rabbi Andy and I have shared many life cycle and shul events over these past 20 plus years. I've seen how he engages with not only his beautiful family and kahila, but with the broader Jewish and general communities. He brings passion, warmth, and thoughtfulness to everything he does. He's the embodiment of chesed, and not just loving kindness as it's usually translated, but also courage and imagination. Judaism teaches us to lift up each day and make it special, and to lift each other up. And Rabbi Rosenblatt does precisely that day in and day out. Yes, he is my rabbi, but I'm also very proud to call him a friend. Thank you to B'nai Brith Canada for honoring Rabbi Rosenblatt with this most deserved award.
Thank you, Mr. Lewin, and I'm particularly appreciative that you agreed to do this at such short notice, and you did it with immediate enthusiasm, and your words speak volumes. I think the rabbi is extremely well respected by British Columbia's Jewish community. I'm surprised to hear a foot of snow. That sounds like Eastern Canada, not Vancouver. It's rather unusual.
It's really rare for us, it is.
All right. Well, let's hope you get your electricity back shortly. Rabbi Rosenblatt, it's my honor to give you the floor, and thank you for addressing our audience this evening.
It's my pleasure. First of all, I just want to say the last time that we got a foot of snow in Vancouver, Eddie and I were up on Whistler Mountain, which had 2 feet of snow, and we got stuck on the Ridge Runner run, and we have fond memories of having escaped that together. But I want to, since everybody stayed, for those who stayed this long on the call, I want to maybe shake things up a little bit and be a little counterculture. First of all, I would gladly trade my certificate for a Screaming Chickens jersey. I've never heard of such a thing. And, you know, I think every rabbi would want one in his collection. So, you know, if that's available, you know, I'm just saying. I also would say that I don't think I'm the most deserving person in British Columbia to get this award. I would dedicate my award to Dr. Ted Rosenberg. I don't know if, I assume everybody on this call, or many of you have heard of Dr. Rosenberg and what he did, but I think I want to sort of, I don't know if the protocols allow me to do this, but I'll just take the liberty and say, this is somebody who's really doing something for anti-Semitism. Dr. Rosenberg resigned his post, a very prestigious post at the UBC Medical School. And in his letter, he points out something very, very important. If you're familiar with universities these days, they have offices and administrators and bloated budgets all for DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I have a son who is a medical school student who is experiencing problems in UBC Medical School with anti-Semitism. I know of another young man who on October the 8th got onto a plane to defend his family and his country against the terrorist attacks of Hamas, and is now being branded a war criminal at UBC. And the problem is that the diversity, equity, inclusion offices are ill prepared to deal with these, as Dr. Rosenberg pointed out. They don't mention Jewish. They don't have an idea that they can't conceptualize of people who are both successful and victimized. They cannot. Jews are this special problem that the diversity, equity, and inclusion orthodoxy just cannot solve. And Dr. Rosenberg really called strong attention to this and basically said, I cannot feel safe in my university. And so if I had my druthers, I would say to you, the person who deserves this award is Dr. Rosenberg, because he gave up something of tremendous value in order to stand up for the Jewish people. And this, if you ask me, this is one of the great frontiers. Ruth Wise, great professor of Yiddish literature, 10 years ago, wrote the following: indeed, institutions that enforce sensitivity training to ensure toleration for gays, blacks, and other minorities may inadvertently be bringing some of these groups together in common hostility to Jews, as the only campus minority against whom hostility is condoned. And I can tell you this week, with this young man being called a war criminal on social media at UBC, I can tell you right now that Ruth Wise is not just a professor, she's a prophet. And that's exactly what's happening. And if I just want to say that, I want to thank B'nai Brith, but we're only, with all great efforts, we still have miles and miles to go, especially on the university campuses.
Thank you, Rabbi Rosenblatt. I'll address what you said in a moment, but I'd like to show your certificate as we did with the other awardees. And it reads, B'nai Brith recognizes leadership of Rabbi Andrew Rosenblatt within his congregation, within the Jewish community in the greater Vancouver area, and commends him for partnering with our organization to facilitate voting rights for observant Jews, for aiding efforts to introduce better and earlier Holocaust education in British Columbia school curricula. Thank you for that. And now I will try to address briefly what the Rabbi said. I appreciate your modesty. And that's probably one of the reasons you were nominated by our BC group. You were nominated for your work in the community since 2003. You are universally respected. No one has a bad word to say about you. People believe in your leadership. You stimulate debate in the community. People listen when you speak every Saturday in the synagogue. More than that, you've helped open a lot of doors. British Columbia is actually one of our weaker provinces in terms of our penetration as an organization. You've helped to put us at least into the game in British Columbia. Recently, the province announced improvements to Holocaust education. It'll become compulsory in grade 10. You played a small role in that. So did I, by the way. We all worked for it, but we need to recognize when there's been good gestures. In terms of voting rights, for me, this is important. Some people say, well, it's a small issue. It only affects a few people. As long as it affects even one voter, it's a big issue. There should never be a situation where there's one class of voters who has more ability, access to the ballot than other voters. It's got to be equal. You thought that was an important issue. You took part in an important call. I know Nathan Cullen for a long time. As you know, I was a politician for a long time, but he probably wouldn't have set up a high-level meeting unless your name was associated with it locally, and it was, and that helped open doors. There are more. I don't have to make the case. The case speaks for itself. You deserve this award. Now, in regards to what you said about the others, we note their contributions, their courage, and their important scholarship as well. And undoubtedly, as we go forward, we will find a way to highlight their work, their sacrifices, their contributions as well. I thank you, Rabbi Rosenblatt, and I just want to say this is the first of what I hope will be many similar events. When I first pitched this at B'nai Brith, I was hoping that twice or three times a year we could do this, and over the course of the year, we would have a pantheon of well-noted Canadians who strongly oppose anti-Semitism, a diverse group of people, diverse not only in terms of racial or religious origin and background, but different parts of the country, different types of contribution, and who could all counsel future B'nai Brith leaders. B'nai Brith will soon celebrate 150 years in Canada. Hard to believe, 150 years. People come and go, but the organization stays. The leadership, the board, the employees will need the guidance of wise people. And I'm certain when we turn to you, you will be able to help us, and you'll be able to help us find others who we need to speak to. Congratulations on your award. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our event. I want to note I'm proud to know all of you personally. For those who I know less well, I will get to know better in the months and years to come. I look forward to working with you again on events and issues that not only combat anti-Semitism, not only build bridges between different communities, but also help the community with services. B'nai Brith is not just an advocacy organization. It works on everything from softball leagues in Toronto to food security, where we deliver food to the vulnerable, to housing, to cultural and social activities. We're trying to grow as an organization, and your work is essential in allowing us to do this. Thank you once again to the B'nai Brith team that helped make this call possible, particularly Lucas Fuina and Bernie Helrich, and thank you to the B'nai Brith staffers who gave of their time today. This call is now complete. Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank
You
you,
too.
Marv.
Thank you. Bye.
Marvin, have a